What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Snowcast Sports Talk Podcast, episode 19. Joined here by my co-host Josh. Josh, how are we doing today, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing great. We've got some OTAs that have recently been going on. We've had media talking to the players and the coaches, and so I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, it seems like even in a dead time of year like May, we still have stories to talk about. And the first thing to talk about, guys, is not good news for any Giants fan. James Bradberry, since the last episode, which was on Tuesday, so I think it was yesterday, Wednesday the 18th, James Bradberry signed a one-year deal with the Philadelphia Eagles. Just a couple quick notes. James Bradberry was the number one corner on the New York Giants roster for the past 2 years. 2 years ago, he went to the Pro Bowl. He played so well, and then last year he had a rough start to the year, but then actually finished off pretty strong. And then when he got released, it was kind of something we knew was going to happen. And we'll go into more detail. I'm just kind of giving some quick notes. And then finally, I was just hoping he was going to go to the Raiders. Patrick Graham, he was the old defensive coordinator for the New York Giants. He went to the Las Vegas Raiders to be their defensive coordinator. And so I was really hoping that's where Graham would end up. But nope, one-year deal with the Eagles. So how are we feeling, Josh?
Oh man, I remember watching that video of the greatest rivalry in sports, the Giants versus the Eagles.
It is.
The craziest thing for him going to our rival, one of the biggest contentious games is the Giants and the Eagles in terms of their blood and their history. It's crazy to me that he's going there within our division and not, any team outside of our division. So we're going to see him a lot more.
Yeah, and we get to see how he fares against Kadarius Toney, Kenny Golladay, Sterling Shepard, Wan'Dale Robinson. So
it's going to be very interesting to see him lining up against our wide receivers and playing as an opponent. So,
and the thing is, I had in the script, there's a silver lining to this, and there really is. James Bradberry is a very strong zone corner. I think one of the things that makes James Bradberry a very good cornerback is his actual football IQ. He's a very smart football player. He's really good at reading plays, understanding where players need to be, and because of that, he's excelled in the NFL. He's always been a top 15 cornerback. And, with the Giants, he was even a Pro Bowler. But the thing is, and the silver lining here is, Bradberry is not great man-on-man, one-on-one coverage. The biggest examples are in the beginning of the year last year when Pat Graham wanted to run more blitz-style defense. James Bradberry, Josh, we watched the Washington game. He was getting cooked by Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, he was. So that's a very good point. And I know that our offense is going to be playing to our strengths. So, if he can't keep up with what we've got, and especially, having such a wide receiver base, he can only really cover one guy at a time. I mean, at least in man. But, so he's only one small presence on the field and the whole defense. And if we're going wide, like is being talked about, then even if they have Bradberry, we're still going to have lots of options out there.
The problem is with the Eagles, they have another cornerback, Darius Slay, who's actually going to be their number one. So James Bradberry was our number one cornerback. And for anyone who doesn't know, that basically means your number one cornerback always lines up against your number one wide receiver. On the Eagles, he's going to be their number two cornerback. So what's going to be interesting is I think we're actually going to target at James Bradberry a lot. I think we'll target at him more than maybe a Darius Slay, who's on the Eagles as well, who's a very good cornerback. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the mismatch is a Kadarius Toney or a Wan'Dale Robinson, some of these quick twitch, faster guys who I don't think, in my opinion personally, I don't think what's his name? I just totally forgot it. James Bradberry will be able to keep up with them. So
they may not, especially with us using our running backs a lot more as a receiver role. I think that'll be huge for us because I was already reading notes on today's OTA, and Jones is still throwing and getting passes to our running backs.
Barkley,
and all of the running backs too. So we're going to be a threat. I feel so confident in the wide receiver core and our running backs and just the aggressive nature of all of these different things that defenses have to pay attention to, that I feel confident, even with very good corners.
And the truth is, with Bradberry, we couldn't have kept him anyway. The year deal he got would have been too much for us to stomach in our cap situation. It just sucks he went to the Eagles, but, I do have to say, this podcast, I think I've talked a lot of crap on the Eagles. I having other guests on, even with Josh here now, I've talked some crap on the Eagles. The Eagles, if Jalen Hurts can just play mediocre, the Eagles have one of the easier schedules next year, and they have a dominant team. If someone said to me, hey, what's the weakness on the Eagles? It was their secondary. And adding James Bradberry to it, I can't deny that the Eagles got a lot better. Even if he's lost a step, being the cornerback too, I still think that's a really nice upgrade for them on a team that is, I think, going to be making a playoff push next year, or at least trying to, unless something unforeseen happens. I mean, they made it to the playoffs last year, so I don't know. I really think James Bradberry is a nice piece there, but I think for the Giants, we shouldn't be super concerned.
I have a lot of respect for James Bradberry and his skills, and it sucks that he's going to someone in our division. I don't want to have to play him a lot.
Because he knows our team. He knows our team. He's been practicing against our guys now for 2 years.
And he's not there with the new whole regime and scheme change, but he still has a lot of experience with the strengths and weaknesses of individuals.
Yeah, it doesn't change.
On our team.
Yeah, that doesn't change.
Yeah. So
it was a good move by the Eagles. It was honestly a really good move by the Eagles to bring James Bradberry in, because that is a piece who knows this Giants team. And I do think the Giants are one of the sleeper teams this year. When you watch around the NFL, people are not talking about the Giants making a big push this year. And rightfully so. The Giants have done nothing to deserve media's respect. I totally 100% accept that. But when you look at this roster and you look at this coaching staff, it's a formula for success in the NFL right now. If you just take it all and do theoretical football math and put it all, and at the bottom, you say, no, this team could compete. And so the Eagles picking up this guy could really be the nail in the Giants' coffin. It could be.
I honestly, it's to the point where this whole new scheme, the whole new energy in the building, just the total, it feels like 180 change in terms of the energy and the way players are talking and the way everybody is feeling. It almost is to the point where I would be surprised if they did just as poorly as last year.
Yeah, and I don't think they will. I think the worst possible thing could just be riddled with injury, which would be horrible. But, if we're playing a ton of games and we're losing by 3 points by a touchdown at the end of the game, and let's say our record is 6-11, I'm okay with that. Or 5-12. But if you look at the losses and it's all by 3 points, I'm okay with that. I really do think that is improvement here for the Giants. I mean, we were losing games last year. We were blown out. We weren't competitive. So just looking for competitive football. So yeah, I don't know. Did I have any other notes on the James Bradberry stuff? I just don't want to miss anything. I just said Bradberry's getting a little bit older and slower. So that, he's an older guy. That's why he signed only a 1-year deal. But the Eagles definitely improved. You can't deny that he's a good corner.
You did mention he could have a bad year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what happens with a lot of these skilled position guys on the offense or defense is, they fall off a steeper cliff. So a cornerback 1, he could fall off a cliff. Like I said, last year, we ran a very blitz-heavy defense at the beginning of the year, and it was destroying us because the quarterback knew James Bradberry couldn't keep up with whoever the number 1 receiver was, and he was getting cooked, man. He was getting cooked. So,
I mean, if he does get cooked, it's a 1-year deal. I don't feel like he can. I don't know. Well, I wonder what your opinion is on this, but I don't know if he can afford to have a bad season with only a 1-year deal at $10 million.
I mean, he can and he can't. The Eagles.
Afford.
Yeah.
What I mean by afford is he can afford. He's getting $10 million in 1 year, so financially he can afford it. I'm saying NFL career afford. Can he afford it in terms of continuing on with a career in the NFL, having a bad season on a 1-year contract?
Yeah, for sure. So what happens is, I think he's 29 or he's 30, and a lot of these cornerbacks play till they're 32, 33. But what happens is they get a little bit long in the tooth. They play a little bit past their prime, and because of that, they start reverting back into further down the depth chart on defenses. So what the Eagles did is the Eagles said, hey, we're going to make a push this year. Let's get this cornerback, but let's not give him guaranteed money because we don't know how he's going to perform with his age and, how he's going to fit in our scheme. So they kind of hedge their bet. Because let's say James Bradberry lays a complete egg next year and they don't do anything, then the Eagles can say, all right, contractually, we owe you no money. Thank you very much. Goodbye. And so, that's what they did. It's the same thing that we did with Daniel Jones. After this year, we owe him no money. And if he plays great. We'll pay him. We'll eat it. We have to do that. But if he doesn't, we don't have to worry about it. Because there's nothing worse than signing a player to a long-term deal that isn't doing anything for your team.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big deal.
So it was a good move. It was a good move for everyone. The Giants cleared up cap space. The Eagles got a cornerback for this year. They didn't give him a whole ton of money guaranteed. So James Bradberry, professionally and as a former Giant, I wish the best for you. But as a Philadelphia Eagle, I hope you crash and burn and everything goes horrible for you. I don't hope you get hurt, but I hope you get just destroyed every play. I don't ever hope injury, but I hope he gets burned every play. So.
Yeah, it's like you're the enemy now, so loved you before, but hey,
peace.
We got to move on fast.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Hey, I'm excited to get into this mini camp stuff, talking about what's really going on with the Giants.
Yes, yeah, no more Eagles talk. No more Eagles talk. So I guess, the first thing I kind of want to touch on, just kind of a quick explanation. So this mini camp, guys, it's voluntary. But as Brian Daboll said, they've actually had really, really good attendance. So I think Dexter Lawrence and one other player were not there for personal reasons. And then Wan'Dale Robinson had some sort of rookie obligation he had to go to, but everyone else was there. Basically everyone else. Like Daboll did not list any of them. So first, just starting there, that's a really good thing. With the new coach and a new scheme put in place here, we really need this team to build up the one thing it doesn't have, and that's continuity. And the example I always use here is the Patriots. The Patriots won the Super Bowl in 2014. They went to they missed it in 2015. They went in 2016 and won. They lost in 2017, and then they won in 2018 again. They went to the Super Bowl 4 times in 5 years. And they had maybe 1 or 2 Pro Bowlers. And so what does that explain? That explains that continuity is a very, very integral part to a successful football team. And it's the one thing the Giants don't have. Not the one thing. One of the big things. The Giants don't have a lot of things. We don't have a decent secondary. We don't have a lot of depth on the team right now because we don't know how these rookies are going to pan out. We don't know if we have a quarterback. We don't know if our offensive line is going to gel. But one of the things we really need to make sure we have at the end of this year is good continuity. So having everyone show up right now, really good.
By continuity, I don't totally understand what you mean. What do you mean? What is continuity?
Familiarize yourself with the players around you. So, there's these things called connections, a quarterback and a tight end. And, the one that comes to mind pretty quick is Eli Manning and Odell Beckham, or Eli Manning and Victor Cruz. So those were 2 wide receivers for the Giants, and Eli was obviously the quarterback for a very long time. And one of the reasons our team was so good those couple years we won those Super Bowls was because the offense had a continuity to it where the offensive line knew how each other played. The wide receivers had connections with the quarterback, so the quarterback knew what routes they liked to run. He knew the tendencies when they ran certain routes. You can call it a slant route, but every wide receiver is going to run that slant route a little differently. And so what's important is when you show up to these voluntary camps, you don't have to show up, but when you do show up, it lets you build up that continuity. Daniel Jones is going to learn more about Kadarius Toney and Kenny Golladay in this new system, being able to run these plays a few more times and just get to see their twitch reactions to certain things. Oh, okay, Kadarius cuts the slant a little quicker. Golladay cuts it a little bit later and runs a little bit slower before he runs it. Those are things that you can't really write down on paper. So it's important for these guys to be showing up. Is it bad if they don't? We can make a big stink about someone not showing up for sure, but them showing up is absolutely a good thing.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. So just having the familiarity of the players and being able to, have them be there year in and year out, and you're not having tons of turnover, all the time, and also being there on these practice days that are not even mandatory. It's just because you're going to get more reps in, and when you have more reps, you have more time to get used to the players and their chemistry and the way that they're working together. So
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so one of the other quick things I wanted to note on too was there was a point made about red shirts. So you wear a red shirt if you're injured and you don't want to be contacted, and a lot of guys were wearing red shirts. I really wouldn't take any stock in that. I think, we have guys coming off injuries from last year. So Andrew Thomas got surgery, obviously Blake Martinez, and a couple other guys, even Kadarius Toney and Sterling Shepard, both of them were in red shirts today. So I just, one of the first things is Dable came out and basically said, he was like, yeah, they're in red shirts, but like, it's nothing to be concerned about. Everyone's rehabbing really well. We just don't want that contact yet. We just want to get familiar with the playbook. So.
Yeah. And I wouldn't really, take it too seriously, because I think even Daniel Jones was wearing a red shirt today.
Yeah, QBs always do. You always redshirt a QB.
So it's not always about being injured. Sometimes it's just about, don't hit this person too hard or too physically, because they need to make sure that their body is in great shape.
Peak shape, yeah.
Exactly.
And so one of the other points too was, we can go over Dable's interview a little bit on the OTAs. One of the things they're really working on is Daniel kind of slinging the ball. So what happened was in 2019, Daniel was under Pat Shurmur's offense, and it was very much slinging the ball around. It was a West Coast offense, and Daniel did very well in it. I think he almost broke the rookie record for touchdown passes thrown in one season. I think he had 24. But then what happened was he had a lot of turnovers, a lot of fumbles, some interceptions, and so when Joe Judge came in, they really made an emphasis on not turning the ball over. And it seems like Dabes is coming in here and he's saying, hey, no, especially in practice, try to fit that ball into a tight window. Try to shoot that ball downfield. We need to see what we can get away with, what works for us. And so it's really nice to see that.
Yeah, he was talking about how, hey, you know what? You throw an interception in practice, doesn't matter. That's what practices are for.
Exactly.
We want to push the limits while we're in practice so that we can get an understanding of what we can do and can get away with when we're in real games.
And
being super aggressive. I love to see Daboll saying that. It's, hey, what are you comfortable with? And really communicating well on what's going to work for Jones. What does he want to see? And, trying to push him to be a little bit more aggressive and get the ball out there. I love that. I love to hear that.
Yeah, and Daves comes from a very, very explosive offense. And then you also have Mike Kafka, who's our offensive coordinator, who he got interviewed today as well. He comes from an explosive offense as well. So,
yeah, Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was the QB coach there. So, he's been around those offenses and saw how they work. So.
Yeah, and Daboll said that he really liked Kafka because he liked what he had done with Mahomes, and he liked the spread offense. The making the space and allowing players to make plays in space. So he really, again, scheme fitting with what Daboll envisions for this offense. So,
which then makes a Wan'Dale Robinson draft selection make a lot more sense.
Absolutely, because he's a smaller guy, but
get him in space and then he can do something.
Yeah, because if you get him out in space, that's where he's going to really excel. So, I actually really liked Kafka.
Yeah, I'm glad you got to. He's a guy who football fans aren't even really sure who he is, but he's a guy who, is going to be, it wouldn't shock me if the Giants have a really good couple years, he's a head coach.
Yeah, and, he was very humble, I think.
Yeah, talked about being excited to come to the Giants and, how it was very special to him and his family and all this great stuff, so...
Yeah, and he was questioned about, hey, are you going to be calling the plays? Are you calling the play? And apparently Kafka had said that he is calling the plays here in the in these practices, but he's not. He said that Daboll has every right to change things and call the plays when it becomes real games, but he's getting at least some practice in calling plays because he said he had never called plays before. He had never done that before.
Being a quarterback's coach. You wouldn't be doing that. And, it's funny because Giants fans, we are not allowed to have an opinion on this because we had Pat Shurmur, 2 coaches ago, and he was an offensive coach who called every offensive play, and it didn't work out. And then we had Joe Judge, who was like a CEO coach, who basically let the offensive coordinator call the plays and then the defensive coordinator, and that didn't work out either. So I think as Giants fans, we need to just trust in Dabes to make the right decision, and I truly believe he's letting Kafka call the plays here in practice to basically kind of test run, hey, is he calling things the way I would call things? Because what they do in practice is they do situational things. So they say, hey, it's 2nd down and 15, which basically means we ran the ball, we got pushed back 5 yards, what are you calling? And I'm sure Daboll says, hey, call a play. And he wants to see if it's something he would call in that situation. And I think Daboll's going to see how aligned they are and then go from there. But if I had to take a bet, I think Daboll's going to call the plays starting out.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna, hit the ground running with, an offensive coordinator that hasn't had an official experience calling the plays just yet. But certainly, I believe it could be a mix.
It could be,
especially like even when the preseason games,
they might let him call there and see how he does.
Yeah, there's. I feel like none of that is decided yet. None of that has probably been. Like, I'm definitely calling plays. None of that is, I feel like, been decided. There's still a lot they're going through right now. And I personally would feel most comfortable with Daboll calling the plays, but I also trust Kafka. I feel like we're in good hands here, regardless of who calls the plays.
Yeah, and Kafka talked about, I'm sure you heard as well, Josh, the synergy him and Daboll have, and how they actually have very similar philosophies when it comes to football. Again, that spread offense mentality, and also just being dynamic. And they say explosive a lot. And I saw it was Justin Pennick from Talking Giants. He made a good tweet. He was like, yeah, every time they say explosive, I just get reminded of our old offensive coordinator, Jason Garrett, who was horrendous, saying explosive and all of us being excited. So don't take much stock into them saying it. But obviously, like, the proof is in the pudding. Like, the Chiefs and the Bills were 2 of the most explosive offenses last year. And, like, their playoff game last year literally came down to the wire with 2 amazing offenses. And now we have the coordinator from the Bills and the quarterback's coach from the Chiefs, both on the Giants.
Yeah, you know what? Talking about explosive, to be more specific, I think that in the future going forward, we're either going to have incomplete passes or we're going to have huge plays. I'm sure there will absolutely be, like these stop and turn around routes. You know what I mean? Like 5-yard, 10-yarders, and then let them run. But I feel like there will be a fair number of 20, 30, 40-yard plays.
Yeah, trying to get some chunk yardage.
I feel like there's going to be chunks.
And the other thing,
the
other thing too is they also made a comment being like, "Hey, this is the Giants' offense," and so this is a great transition to my next point. Dabes and Kafka really made a point saying, just because we were on the Chiefs and the Bills does not mean that's what this offense is going to look like. And I think one of the things Brian Daboll's been really credited for in his tenure as a football coach, which has been over 25 years, is being a very adaptable coach. So it would not shock me if the Giants come out in 2 tight end condensed packages and not always spreading the ball like the Chiefs and the Bills did, because maybe that's not what works with their players. Getting Saquon to run the ball successfully, we might need Bellinger in at tight end to run block. And that means we can't have a wide receiver out on the field. Like, we only can have 3, not 4. So then the spread offense doesn't work as well. So I think one of the things to remember is just because Kafka was on the Chiefs and Dabes was on the Bills doesn't mean the Giants offense is going to instantly be that. What they're both doing right now is seeing these guys' strengths, and then they're going to take those strengths and build an offense around it. And it might look different, and it might not be exactly what we're expecting.
I absolutely agree with you. I think first and foremost, they had said it already that, this is the Giants offense. This is not the Bills offense. This is not the Chiefs offense. This is the Giants. Now, Kafka was clear that certainly they've had a lot of influence and that they were great starting points, but they've really got to build this offense to what we have. And, what I'm thinking, what I'm possibly thinking, is that sure, there is this big talk about us going wide. There's a lot of passing stuff. But hey, what if our offensive line is way better than it was?
Yeah.
If our offensive line is so much better than it was, then why wouldn't we run the ball more? So I don't
Or
think
why wouldn't we run the spread offense? Because you need a good offensive line to run a spread offense, because that means you have no tight ends with you.
yeah, but of course there's that too.
So you need a
and
good
then with the
offensive
run
line.
Yeah, with the run game, you got to have a good you got to have a good O line regardless.
No matter what. That's the truth of football.
No matter what, but you're gonna have more open. If you have a bad offensive line, though, which is gonna be harder, running or passing? I feel like running would be harder, even on
Both are
passing,
tough,
even
but
with
yeah.
with a bad offensive line. Even then, you would still be able to get pass plays off, but you would almost never be able to get a run
That's
play
the
off.
problem with Daniel Jones, and this is why people get on him sometimes. Great little tangent, by the way, Josh. Great little tangent. God, I keep burping though. Excuse me.
Yeah.
One of the things is Daniel Jones has not succeeded with a bad O-line. But the thing is, most good quarterbacks in the NFL can. And that's what we need to learn about Daniel Jones. So what I think, and a lot of people, this is not my original idea, I have heard a lot of people say this, is the Giants are going to really focus on getting the ball out of Daniel Jones' hands quick. Because they don't know what this offensive line is. Evan Neal is obviously a stud from Alabama, but we don't know what he is in the NFL. Mark Lewinsky is a proven player for sure, but he's never been a top guard. Feliciano, this is his first year playing center full-time. And then we're either going to have Shane Lemieux or Azuda at left guard, who are either a guy who's been injured and has only played a few games, or a rookie. So the Giants need to figure out what their offensive line can do. So we might be throwing the ball out of our hands quick. And I'm excited to see how Jones does with that, because some quarterbacks struggle with that philosophy. Not as easy as you would think. But, yes, with a good offensive line, we might be running the ball a lot more than the Chiefs did or the Bills did, because they didn't have Saquon Barkley in the backfield. And give him all the hate you want. He's one of the most talented players in the NFL, and you will not hear me say anything different. Is he one of the most proven? No. Has he had a good couple years? Absolutely not. But if this offensive line gets shored up, it could really help Saquon. And we might run the ball a lot more, because this is the Giants offense, not the Bills and the Chiefs offense.
Right. And, I mean, going from what the coaches has been saying, the vibe that I'm getting, it really seems they're focused on the pass
Yes.
plays.
Yep. Yeah.
It seems like they're really focused on that. But the only reason I brought up the run game is because I don't think we should count it out as something that's not going to happen.
No.
Obviously they're going to have that. They're going to be playing to that. And it's not like we're only going to be passing and that's it. So that obviously you wouldn't want to become predictable. But yeah, that's what I wanted to basically bring up.
Well, the great transition is, with the offense, we keep hearing about this flexibility, but when you shift over to the defense, where I think the defense, with the offense, I think the wide receivers, the quarterback, the offensive line, everything is kind of right around the same level. With the defense, there's very clear strengths and very clear weaknesses. So the clear strength is our defensive line. I mean, let's take a minute here. We have Azeez Ojulari, who broke the rookie record for sacks last year for a Giant, I believe. He did. We have Sexy Dexter Lawrence. We have Big Leonard Williams, Big Cat. And now we have Kayvon flippin' Thibodeau. Our defensive line is legit, guys. But then you go to our linebacker core, our safety core, and our cornerback core, and it's a little bit lacking. We've actually seen the Giants, and don't quote me on names here, I don't want to go into specifics, but we've been seeing them sign a lot of guys. And so the point I'm coming with this is, it doesn't seem like Wink, at least from the interviews, is going to stray away from his blitz heavy package defense. And that's awesome. That's what Wink Martindale is. It's been very successful with the Ravens. I am just scared. This is the thing that scares me the most with the Giants, is that our defense takes a legitimate step back because we can't get to the quarterback and there's no safety or there's no coverage help in the back. And where I hope, or where we see the Giants offense moving in the direction of, hey, let's build around the players, I don't hear that from the defensive side. And it's no knock on Wink. Hell, Kayvon Thibodeau could be so dominant, him rushing the passer as much as he doesn't give the quarterback any time to make a throw. And that could absolutely be the case. But if someone said to me, Will, what's the biggest thing you're afraid of right now? That's the biggest thing.
So to put it in other words, one of your biggest fears is that blitzing, we're going to go blitz heavy, and then it's going to backfire because we don't have a lot of secondary out there, and then they're going to make big plays on us.
It's what happened against Washington, and it's what happened against Denver last year. Weeks 1 and 2, Pat Graham wanted to blitz a lot. Now, we didn't have a Kayvon Thibodeau. We did not have Kayvon rushing. That's the only big difference now.
We didn't. But, I don't think it was any more clear than in the Leonard Williams interview that we're going to be having a lot more blitzes. He said it himself. He said, Leonard Williams basically said that many defensive coordinators in the past for the Giants have said, hey, we're going to be aggressive, and they would blitz when the time is right. But he said that this is the most aggressive defense that I've ever been a part of. We're blitzing way more than any other time, any other previous year.
Yeah, defensive coach.
Yeah. So he said that, the offense is going to have to deal with us. Just deal with us. We're going to do what we're going to do, and they have to play around us. We're not going to try and match what they're doing and change the way the defense is playing based on the offense. No. The defense is just going to do their thing. They're going to rush. They're going to be a hassle. The offense is going to have to deal with it and figure out how to deal with it. That's pretty much that's the words that Williams said. So I think it's pretty clear that there's going to be a lot of rushing.
It concerns me, but again, in Dabes I trust, in Joe Shane I trust, and in Wink I trust. He's a proven defensive coordinator. He's been in the league for a long time. People were shocked when he got fired, and the fact that the Giants got him is an absolute steal. And so I'm really excited to have him as our defensive coordinator. I just don't know if he's ever played with such a depleted secondary that he can get away with this. And what I hope is week 1 against the Titans, I think Wink's defense is going to work amazing because the Titans are a run-first team. Let's blitz the crap out of them. I'm for it. But when things don't work, what my problem was with Joe Judge, Pat Graham, Jason Garrett, and Freddie Kitchens when he filled in at offensive coordinator was we did not make offensive adjustments or defensive adjustments in the game or in the season to help us. And I hope Wink Martindale makes those adjustments according to how his players are playing and what's working and what's not. Because that is what makes good coaches good and bad coaches bad. And that is what made Joe Judge bad, in my opinion. That is why he had to be fired. The first reason was very poor coaching decisions on adjustments made in games and in season.
Yeah, I think that's kind of it makes me feel sketchy a little bit too. I mean, it sounds awesome, it sounds confident, but there is a part of me worrying that, hey, blitzing, that sounds great, but I am worried about the backfire because it's sort of an all or nothing kind of deal. When you're blitzing, you're sacrificing coverage in the backfield.
Exactly. And Josh, our division is so strong. So we have to play Terry McLaurin on Washington. We have to play AJ Green and Devontae Smith on the Eagles. And then on the Cowboys, we have to play CeeDee Lamb and I'm going to forget the other guy's name right now. But every team in our division who we have to play each of them twice a year has a legit wide receiving core. And now Adoree Jackson's going to be our number 1 cornerback on press man-on-man coverage. Yeah, I'm not comfortable with that as a Giants fan. I'm just going to be honest. I'm just not comfortable with that. That is where my concern is. And it's crazy to think this time last year, the only thing I was concerned about was the offense and what they were going to do. But now it's completely flipped.
And
it shouldn't flip because we don't know. Jones could go out there and throw stinkers and we'd be screwed. But either way, right now when you look on paper, it's that secondary that scares me. And it scares me the comments I'm hearing. Yeah, Williams, he's like, oh yeah, it's the most blitzes and the most pressure I've ever seen in a playbook. It's like, okay.
Maybe we'll see how it pans out. I don't ever want to make a conclusion on a topic without seeing it with my own eyes. I want to see how it plays out, because maybe it's being overhyped a little bit, even by Williams and by the players
It could
themselves.
be.
You know,
It could be.
they could be even overhyping it, but I'm sure that, our defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, is smarter than that. He's not an idiot. He knows about the sacrifices he's making. He's way more knowledgeable than probably most of us are in terms of defense and how to run it properly. So he's not completely neglecting this. So I think even he will be. I have confidence that he will understand when to push, when to kind of hold back a little bit and have more coverage in the secondary. Like, he's not going to be. What I want to make it clear is I don't think he's going to be like 3rd and 19 and he's going to still be blitzing.
I hope not.
I think he has that common sense, obviously. So I think I'm on withhold judgment on that until we see. But you're absolutely right. The defensive backs and the defensive back core is where I think our weakest point will be going forward.
Yeah, I'm concerned. But hey, we'll see. We'll see. And the final bit I want to go over, Josh, because we've kind of gone over everything here. So the final bit was in the Williams interview. Josh, here's the truth. It's not a Snowcast episode unless we give Kayvon Thibodeau some love. Because there's no player you and me are more excited about than Kayvon freaking Thibodeau. First thing was, he did have some sort of hip or groin problem in the middle of practice, and he got checked out by the trainers, but he never went into the locker room. So all the reporters were like, hey, nothing to worry about. He may have just tweaked something. But definitely something that scares me, because the last thing the Giants need is their number 5 overall pick, Kavon, dealing with injuries, trying to build up chemistry and continuity, or in the season.
Yeah, I personally didn't see that report. I'm sure you saw it somewhere.
It was out. I'm 100% sure it was something that was reported.
But hey, look, I don't want to hear that stuff right now.
Me neither.
I don't want to hear that.
Me neither.
Man, I really don't want to hear that stuff. Could you imagine if we lose Thibodeau in the first game to an injury? No, that would.
I'm knocking on wood right now, so let's not even think about it. Let's talk about Leonard Williams' comments about Kayvon as our final point here. Leonard had a lot of really great things to say about him. Obviously, Leonard goes out and talks to the media. The media's going to be like, yo, how's Kayvon? How's Kayvon? How's Kayvon? And Leonard was really, really, authentic about it, in my opinion. He's like, yeah, you see him on TV. You see his dance with the commissioner, but he comes in, he has a really high football IQ. And then someone even said to him, they're like, hey, can you explain what that means? And he goes, yeah, he knows when to use his skill set at certain times, which is what we talked about, Josh, in the film review on him, was the reason Kayvon, in my opinion, was the best pass rusher in the draft this year, is because of the toolbox he has of using strength, speed, quickness, his hands. So Leonard Williams only had good things to say about him, which was great to hear.
Yeah, and in some of the film that we had watched previously, he knows when to go outside and inside. Like, he'll fake going outside, and then he'll dip inside when the lineman least expects it, or the offensive lineman least expects it, and he's beaten him to the quarterback. So he's got intelligence, and I think he's got, he understands how to read an offensive lineman's stance and how to use that to their disadvantage. So I think that's really what makes him such an incredible player. Yeah. And so hearing Williams say that, great. He even talked about how, having Thibodeau and Ojulari kind of on the outside, rushing from the outside, he said, hey, it's pretty cool. His goal is to push in the center and push the quarterback toward those guys. Very selfless thing to say. He's not saying, hey, I'm going to get the sacks. No, I'm going to push the quarterback towards Ojulari and Thibodeau. I'm going to push him
and that's the job of a defensive lineman, but it's definitely nice to hear that, that selflessness. So,
yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, we've gotten a lot, a lot of tidbits of information, a lot of things to be really excited about. I think as a final note here, just there's a lot to be excited about as Giants fans right now. I don't think we're winning a Super Bowl next year, but I don't see why we can't be a scrappy team that we see a lot of improvement. And after next year, we'll have an answer on Daniel Jones. We'll have an answer on a ton of players. We'll have a ton of cap space. So, like, for Giants fans, it's like, I feel like we hit that rock bottom. I feel like Joe Judge and Gettleman at the end there, that was that rock bottom, and now we get to move forward with two people that I feel really confident with, Brian Daboll and Joe Shane. And so, yeah, just exciting stuff coming up, and, yeah, I guess those are my final thoughts.
Yeah, my final thoughts are we didn't get to talk a lot about Daniel Jones, but he made comments recently. He had talked about what Dable had said.
Yeah,
about,
true.
throwing those tighter throws and being a little bit more daring. And he had said, hey, it's really situational. It's not one of those things that is just like a blanket statement that you apply at every play.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, I'm going to be aggressive and try to make those dangerous throws every single play. That's not something you do. It's situational. It's based on the read on the defense and stuff. So it seemed like Jones had a more retracted version of what Dable had said. But he's still working on that and doing that, and he's working on that. But he's saying, you know what, it's situational. It's not something that you just do every play. So I don't know. It's just nice to hear Jones being level-headed and everything. So
looking forward to it. Well, on that note, guys, we'll have definitely more to discuss next week when we'll both be back. And yeah, we'll catch you all on the next one. Go Giants.
Go Giants.